He was Ben's longtime collaborator.
Who are we talking to today, Keith?
I know, you're going to have to look up to find out.
Look skyward,
Whoa.
and you will see one Berndt Mader.
On your left.
You're listening to Doc Walks with Ben and Keith.
Pride of Richardson, Texas.
That's right. Thank you.
Berndt Mader.
That's right. So
75080, guys. So it all began.
So Berndt and I have been longtime friends. We met in graduate school, the University of Texas here in Austin, RTF program.
Yeah.
And after we graduated, we accidentally started our nonprofit
Right.
known as The Bear, which is our production company here in town. And we are on our 19th year
That's right.
as a company, which is wild to say out loud. It's hard to believe that we've been doing this with, I would say, varying levels of success
Incompetency.
Professional.
and professionalism for almost 20 years. Yeah. How was that for an intro? Did I cover everything?
I think we can do better than that. Come on, Brian.
Let's
Okay.
get into this.
He's a man of the people. He's loquacious. He's opinionated.
Yeah.
He's got a foot in the world of fiction, a foot in the world of nonfiction, and a third foot in the world of commercialism.
That's a lot of feet.
Yeah.
The three-footed man, Berndt Mader. Is that the title?
Three-footed man.
Three-footed man. Tripod, they call him.
Does I go that far?
And let's keep it a family show.
So Ben Berndt of the Bear. And where'd you come up with the name of the Bear?
Someone asked me that the other day, and the answer that we give, I made a documentary for my uncle. He was hosting a camp for his grandchildren, and I made this little documentary for him. I just threw it on the end of that because my name Berndt means bold as a bear in German. It means Bernie in German. It's not that exotic.
Bearish.
Get over yourselves. So I threw it on that, and then Ben and I and Chris McElroy, we were starting our company, or didn't really know what we were doing. We needed a bank account. And I was like, hey, I just used this thing, the Bear, on this doc. And
I have a very different version of this story, for the record.
anyway, we were looking for a name, and I was like, oh, I use this thing on this doc. Like, what do you guys think of that? And we had other ideas, and Ben was thinking about Rock Farmer Productions. Steinbauer means rock farmer in
It
German.
does, in German. Yep.
But then Ben, when he was a kid, was nicknamed Benny Bear, and my name means bold as a bear. So I had all this bear stuff going on, and you were like, all right, this is a common denominator. Let's do it. So
That's right. And I would say that it was more focused than that. And I don't remember the tidbit about it being in the credits, but I had worked previously commercially as an assistant editor, and we were getting job requests, and I knew that I couldn't always be available solo. I met Baron and Chris McElroy were in our graduate class, and I knew enough at the time to never say no, and that if I said no, that people would consider me unavailable and stop calling. And so I was like, let's team up and figure out how we can basically tackle all these jobs. And then at a certain point, once we'd done a couple of these, we needed something more official than just three dudes who were kind of trying to piece it together while in graduate school. And then we had to come up with a name, and then the name came from our shared nicknames.
What really sealed the deal, though, was that our friend Taylor Holland was like, that's a great name, and here you go, and gave us a bear costume that we were like, well, now we have like a bear costume. This is fate. And we started doing, like, we did little promotional ads for our company that no one knew about.
I like to assume that you go into pitches with agencies and companies in that bear costume.
Yeah, man.
You guys argue over who gets to do it each fan?
Yeah, we do. We draw straws.
So basically for almost 20 years, it's been a very unusual name. And people are always like, why the bear? Why did you come up with it?
Right.
And then lo and behold, sorry, Keith, you aren't, but you're the best at that. And then lo and behold, who would have thought that a TV show, let alone a very successful TV show, would come along with the same name. And the saving grace is that at least it's a good show. People think now when I wear the hat that I'm just a big fan.
I like to think it's like an affirmation that we were really on to something 20 years ago. That share 20 years later is very popular.
That's right. We're ahead of our time.
Yes, chef.
We're so far ahead that we're behind. Actually,
Herd chef.
Good chef.
Well, this Chris McElroy. That's literally a name I've never heard. He's like the Pete Best of.
Yeah. No, Chris McElroy, he's an amazing filmmaker. He actually just came and visited my class at UT this semester. He's like one of the most prolific filmmakers I know. He just makes a short a year is basically his deal in the kind of horror comedy genre. He's incredible. Anyway, he was a grad student, fellow grad student of ours in UT, and we kind of all joined together, stumbled our way into founding the Bear together. So he was a third partner.
yeah. I don't think it was even a year that Chris was with us. He was married in graduate school
To KUT's
And-
Rebecca McElroy.
to KUT's Rebecca McElroy, and they got pregnant. And then he was like, "Guys, I need a real job." And we were like, "Yes, you do." And this is not a real job.
Yeah, we were not making very much.
But luckily, we at the time, I was helping Margaret Brown with this Ockerville River music video, and Rose Hanson Smith was a producer on it, and she was like, "Do you know anybody who needs a full-time job, because T3, this ad agency in town, is looking for an in-house director?" And I was like, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And he's basically been with T3, that is now known as a different name, but ever since. And they are super lucky to have him, because he's one of those guys that can kind of do
He
everything.
can do. He's a multi-tool player, as they say in baseball.
All right, let's show
Yeah.
So here we are with Berndt. We're walking along the hiking bike trail here at Lady Bird Lake in Houston. If you've been on the podcast before, you've been with us here out at the lake. But this is a particularly placid, gray, delightful spring, kind of neutral weather morning.
Yeah, we're marking an occasion here for our little show. This is episode number 50. We have done 50 episodes of this podcast, Keith Maitland, which, when you look back, is sort of hard to believe. That's a fair amount of episodes. And we thought, what better way to market than with one of the producers of the show
Oh yeah,
and
that's me.
my best friend, my business partner,
There you
Berndt
go.
Mader.
Amen.
Mark it up.
I'm honored to be here, guys, and I'm really happy that both of you are here.
Okay.
But it's just Ben. I see Ben every day.
That's
It's just
true.
Keith. It's like going to the fresh air and like you get Dave Davies. You don't want Dave Davies. You want Terry Gross. And you guys together are the Terry Gross.
Yeah, I was like, wait a second. In this
the
analogy,
podcast
I think you just called me Dave Davies.
No.
As somebody who's been on Fresh Air and found out at the last minute it was going to be Dave Davies, I can concur. Hey, no harm, no foul, Dave. I'm down anytime you want to do it. And look, Terry,
we love
Terry, we're still available. All three of us are still available.
Yes.
Ben, I told this to Berndt the other day when I saw him up at the Bear. I was a little nervous because you guys know each other so well. I didn't want to feel like a third wheel.
Yeah.
I didn't want to feel left out of all the inside jokes about bone marrow and whatever else it is.
We have those.
Yeah, you got
Yeah.
the bone marrow.
But I also thought, well, maybe I'm offering a little bit of a service to our audience,
Yes.
kind of being a neutral observer, somebody who can come in and help bring some of the best nuggets to the surface out of curiosity and
Absolutely.
and
That's right.
ignorance, really.
You can be the Dom DeLuise to our Burt Reynolds. See, perfect. Yeah.
Call me Captain Chaos. So Berndt and Ben met in grad school at UT, but Berndt, it wasn't the day that you met Ben that you decided to become a filmmaker. Let's go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Where does like your nugget of recognition that the film life
Right.
is the Berndt life?
My father was a photographer, so I grew up around his studio and around his photography sets, and I thought I wanted nothing to do with that. I was familiar with the kind of the apparatus of production because his sets had lights and crew members and et cetera, et
So
cetera.
what kind of photography was he into?
He did portrait work, but also some fine art stuff, but his kind of business was more portraiture,
And
high-end portraiture.
I was gonna say, yeah, he was filming basically the who's who of Dallas. So
Yeah.
the Bushes, the Dells,
Yeah.
the Cowboys. Basically, there's lots of photos
Yeah,
of Tom
yeah.
Landry around the office.
But yeah, so I grew up around his sets, and I got to college, and I was all kind of curious about filmmaking, and ended up taking some classes in film theory, etc. And then an old buddy of mine, David Gordon Green, who I grew up with in Richardson, Texas, as you mentioned before, Keith, was about to make his first feature film. And I saw him at my brother's, what do you call it? Wedding shower, I guess.
Okay.
And he was like, hey, I'm about to make this movie called George Washington. I'll send you the script. I was like, hey, I'm kind of starting to get into film and pick up some classes. And he's like, come intern on it or come just be a part of it. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool, but I got this internship at Killer Films lined up. And he was like, well, just push that internship back, come down to North Carolina and help us on this movie, George Washington. So I did that, and that was just like a magical experience, because like David had this group of people, they're all just undergraduate film grads from the North Carolina School of the Arts, and it was just like, everyone was living in this house in Winston-Salem, and the cast was there, and these kids were living in the house with us. It was just like magical, crazy, bohemian film experience that just kind of lit me on fire and inspired me to get into filmmaking more. I'm in the movie. I'm credited as a swing, grip electric on it. But
Do you know what that was at the time?
No, I had no idea anything. I just carried sandbags around basically all summer. So David let me into this world of his and introduced me to the idea of like production on a scale, you know, in making a film. And I never looked back. So I went back to school. I took more film classes.
I want to pause you there. Is that the summer of 98 or 99?
That was 99.
Yeah. George Washington is one of those films for our generation.
Yeah.
Like just kind of blew open the world of possibilities.
Yeah.
And the fact that you had the experience of being on set and a part of it and uninterrupted
Yeah.
is something I honestly didn't know. I know that you had a long relationship with David Green, but I didn't know that you were there.
Yeah, we went to elementary school together. Our houses were like behind each other growing up.
Yeah.
So he was just an old friend, and he's 3 years older than me. So we had those times where we were, you know, close as, you know, young kids. And then the teen years, you kind of lose each other. And then we kind of became buddies again through this experience and are still good friends today. So.
And just to interject really quickly, Brian Belitek, who is a very well-known commercial director who started Smuggler Films, also grew up in this neighborhood. So there's something in the water in Richardson, Texas.
Well, I brought up Richardson at the beginning because I grew up probably about 4 miles away from you in Plano, Texas.
Right.
Oh,
Next to
yeah, it wasn't in the water.
That's where
There was a water treatment facility.
there was a wall that kind of came up. I just wanted to say for our listeners out there, if you haven't seen George Washington, of course, David Gordon Green is a big name in a couple different genres of filmmaking and production, and just like an all-around great guy. But George Washington, I feel like, is one of those films that, like, it made a splash, it made an impact, it launched his career, it reframed, I think, for our generation, that kind of indie film model that had kind of burst on the scene 7 or 8 years earlier.
Right.
That for people around our age felt aspirational, but even already a little out of reach. And David said, no, it's not out of reach. You can do this, and you can do it in this poetic, beautiful, lyrical way.
Yeah.
And so if you haven't seen George Washington, check it out. Specifically, look for the swing work. It's
The sandbags are majestic.
it's known for
Those cheap stands aren't going to set themselves up, you know?
Well, and interestingly, David, from that movie, established his sort of team that he's basically still working with, right?
Yeah.
Like Danny McBride and Jody Hill and
Craig Zobel in there.
Craig Zobel, like that North Carolina crew.
Tully was a part of that crew for a while.
exactly.
Yeah, that's where Tully and I met.
Oh, that's where the good stuff. Yeah, but
Yeah,
showed up.
yeah, that's right.
yeah, no, I have a lot of respect for that world, and like you said, like the ripple effects of not just
Yeah, that movie was like ahead of its time in a lot of ways. Just like David he wanted to shoot on anamorphic 35. It was like a harken back to the 70s. We see a lot of that today. But like that wasn't done on every independent film in 1999, you know? It was like very unusual. A lot of indies were being shot on 16 because it was maybe a little cheaper.
Right.
David was like, no, I'm going to shoot this I think the last shit he sent me was $55,000.
Wow.
And that's what they made it for. And it was amazing. And then I had my internship at Killer Films, and David had cut together a teaser that was beautiful. And they were trying to raise money for finishing funds. And he mailed me this VHS tape, and he was like, see if anyone at Killer can see it and get behind us. We need money.
old Christine and Pam aside.
I did. I showed her and Pam the teaser, and I remember her comment was, make sure you're not being purposefully obtuse.
Oh. Keep track.
Because it was very lyrical and not like a concrete story, which, you know, that's the movie. It's like this kind of coming of age very charismatic, kind of impressionistic.
That's
film.
actually a pretty good note, though, I would say.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
make sure it's not just like weird for weird's sake.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it was this beautiful teaser, and I told them that they were looking for finishing funds, etc. But that never happened. I think they found it elsewhere. But anyway, that's the George Washington story.
Well, Christine Vachon is somebody we should try and get on the podcast. Her book, was it If Looks Could Kill?
Shooting to Kill.
Shooting to Kill.
Yeah, which I read that summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was hilarious, man. Youth, it's great.
Foundational text.
1999, I was sleeping on my cousin's wife's sister's air mattress.
Hey.
Every morning, the air mattress had a leak in it. Every morning I woke up on the floor and I would just pump it up every night and then boom, on the floor every morning.
Somewhere your cousin's wife's sister is on a podcast right now.
Yeah.
So you should have this great air mattress.
She's actually like an executive at Alphabet, Google's parent.
Wow. Really?
Yeah,
So she has a very nice air mattress now, I would imagine.
Berndt, in your role as executive producer on Docwalks, you're
Yes.
going to reach out to Christine Vachon
Yes.
and somebody at
Vanessa Cho
Vanessa.
Yes.
and others.
And so you'll get Google as the
David
sponsor.
Gordon Green, can get him on here.
Get David.
Yes.
David Gordon Green did me a very nice solid. I do not know him very well at all. I met him a couple times through the years. If he is, like I said, an inspiration, both for how he started, but also like the business that he's built, and like his facility at genre hopping and maintaining his own voice.
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate a few years ago. We were in a award season. He hosted a brunch for me with legendary producer Ed Pressman.
Yeah.
And it was kind of one of those moments of 1999 coming to like a reality and like pinch yourself kind of.
Yeah, David's full of those stories, man. I mean, he won't tell you about them, but he's been a connector of people and is always going out of his way to write an email or do some outreach on behalf of another filmmaker. He's a total mensch in that regard. Yeah, he's done a ton for me and a lot of other people, so definitely shout him out.
Yeah. Well, and David, interestingly, is a connection point to the documentary that we made that it was never going to come out.
Just
But-
like every documentary you want to make, once you just don't want it to come out ever. It's always better in your mind when no one can see it.
Well, in a way, that's actually true about this movie because we made this documentary during COVID. That is one of those moments in both of our careers where it was like so full of potential and we almost had it and it felt like this was going to be.
It almost had it. We made this movie. It was
Well, I meant like the premiere part of it. The agents were talking Sundance premiere, and it like was going to be this big splash, and then we never actually jumped in the water. Kind of fizzled out.
Well, we did jump in some water, but yeah, we didn't get the opportunity to bring it to the world like we started to dream about.
Well, we're going to get into that. We're going to find out when they jumped in the water. Was it boiling water or were they like frogs in a pot?
Yeah.
What are we talking about? One of the things that I'm so excited about getting a chance to celebrate the 50th is to celebrate Ben, some of the work that he's done, and introduce you all to Berndt and the work that he's done and the work that they've done together.
Yeah.
Specifically, what we're kind of roundabout talking about is a documentary film that was until it wasn't.
We should just come out and say it. It was a documentary that we got contacted by Roughhouse, which is David's company, to make.
I was just chatting with David and just catching up with him, David Gordon Green, and we hung up the phone and then he calls me back like a day or two later and he's like, hey, I can't believe I didn't bring this up, but we're starting a documentary division at his company, Roughhouse. And the first film out the gate, we're going to make a documentary on Kid Rock. And would you guys want to be involved?
Wow.
And so I go back to Ben and I'm like, hey, there's this opportunity, womp womp, it's on Kid Rock, whose music we don't necessarily celebrate and whose politics we don't share. And so I think your reaction was like, no way, right?
Yeah. Well, I remember we got on the phone with Adam Balalo, who has been a guest on the show and is also a fellow documentarian and friend of ours. And what he said was, we want a Winnebago man, like funny documentary about Kid Rock. And I remember being like, no, because I don't like his music. I don't like his politics and I don't think I like him.
Right.
So I don't know why we would do this. And I credit you greatly for this. You essentially pulled me aside and you were like, hey man, think about this for a second. We have a $2 million budget from Live Nation. We have the opportunity to work with David Gordon Green and Danny McBride on something. And this guy could be really interesting. I mean, this is a chance to do something like really subversive here. And so we basically ended up flying to Nashville to meet him, and we left that meeting being like, okay, there's a lot of interesting things about this guy, and maybe we can make a pretty nuanced thing. But at the time, it was still basically like going to kind of be a commercial for him in a way. We weren't ever saying that, but it was essentially about the fact that he was going to go on his last tour, put out his last album, build this Graceland-style mansion to himself, and then at 50 years old, sort of knowingly retire and say goodbye to that part of his life permanently. And that was going to be the arc of the movie.
I mean, you're in an interesting situation. I love the way that you frame this, because most of us wonder what we'll do when we're like put into a predicament, right? Marlboro called, and they just cast a new Marlboro man, and they're just looking for somebody to point a camera at him and trick a new generation of kids into lung cancer. We got a great budget.
It was always from the get-go, it was like, hey, we want to do something fair. We don't want a hit piece, is basically what they said.
Right.
And which, that's an obvious choice. You could easily make that a hit piece doc and just, gather all the worst things he's ever said, etc. But they're like, we want the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
With an emphasis on the good. No, they didn't say that.
Well, and it was an interesting position for them, too, because what we came to learn that we didn't know at the beginning was that Kid Rock, lots of people had tried to make a Kid Rock documentary, and he'd always said no, and he'd never really given any filmmakers access before.
Right.
And the reason that he wanted this whole situation to happen was he loved Danny McBride. Yeah. And he thought Danny's characters in Eastbound and Down and Righteous Gemstones, although I guess maybe that hadn't quite come out yet.
Right.
But basically he wanted to tell people that Danny McBride was making his documentary. That was the whole point of the situation.
And Danny and David, kind of, and Jody, as well as part of Roughhouse, they kind of, anointed us in Kid Rock's eyes. They're like, oh, these are the guys who they chose to actually carry out the making of this film. If they're good enough for Danny and David and Jody, then they're good enough for me.
The kind of main interview day with Kid Rock, Danny called in on FaceTime and basically was like, these are the guys. Like Berndt said, we were like their representatives, basically.
Well, let's talk about Kid. So like you're in this, you've got this opportunity.
Yep.
You debate it. Yep. You decide, probably wisely so.
Yeah.
Let's
do it.
Let's do it. Let's at least develop this thing to figure it out.
And then
let me add some color to that, though. So what we discovered pretty quickly in researching him is that he's this interesting ball of contradictions, right? Like he's said and done some horrible things politically, for sure.
And musically.
And musically. Okay, fair.
Hip-hop.
But he came out of hip hop. He was signed to Jive Records at 18. Yeah. He was best friends for a time with Reverend Run of Run DMC. He'd worked with Chuck D, Grandmaster Flash. Like he was like super legit in the eyes of the old school hip hop community. And then he played Obama's inauguration. He had a band that was racially and gender diverse, who had been with him for like 30 years, and all were like super loyal, defended what he said. Kid. So there was like there were these things about him that were not cut and dry and easy to just put aside.
That's what you came up with in your research. Yeah, what I want to get to is, what was your first impression when you actually met the guy?
He'll win you over. I mean, he's a total Midwestern guy. He's like, first question out of his mouth is like, can I get you a beer?
That
it's a good Coors Light, probably.
We are back where we started because I'm going to fall on the sword for this one. I did not format the cameras. So we ran out of card space right in the middle of that Kid Rock conversation.
Where were we in the Kid Rock saga?
I think we're building to the Kid Rock curse.
Yeah.
Like this story does not want to get out, is I think the undercurrent. I really appreciate it. And I'll be honest with you. Yeah. Like when Ben told me that you guys were making the Kid Rock documentary, I had the reaction that I think a lot of people probably have had, and I'm glad to know you guys also had, which I wasn't aware. Which is like, why?
Yeah. Why platform this guy?
Well, and one thing that's interesting to just remind people of, which I think is very important to say, is that this is 2019, not 2026, when we were having these conversations.
2020.
Well, we started talking to him in 2019, like the very end of 2019. And so
we can have different facts, but
well, it's true.
It was February 2020.
It was February 2020 when we met Kid Rock.
Maybe it was December 2019, but what I'm pointing out is that while he was very Trumpy, he was not where he is today. Like he was writing these sort of conciliatory songs at the time that were about like, we're all Americans, we should all party together, we've been too divided. And he was making this effort towards reconciliation, which, as you've seen the movie, Keith, you now see in the movie. And so we were around him at a time when that was like shifting a little bit, and it wasn't quite as like super hard, I'm all about MAGA all the time, that he has since become.
Rock flag in the eagle.
Yeah, Keith saw a rough cut out of the movie when we were editing.
Right.
Yes.
Back in the day.
And I was curious, like, where that film would have gone if you had had the opportunity to finish it. I mean, what I saw was a finished cut, but it wasn't the finished cut. I mean, there were a couple black slugs. I'm sure, like every film, it would have gone through, you know, a couple of more rounds of revision and kind of decision making.
Well,
what I saw was a very congealed.
We turned in the director's cut to Live Nation, which is basically the second of 3 edits, which is, to your point, like we were getting ready to basically lock it for color and mix and all that.
We were supposed to interview Rick Rubin. It was our last interview. He was producing the album that Kid Rock was working on. And he kept putting us off, and then finally the whole thing imploded.
Well, and before we get to the implosion, because I want to dive into the implosion and that feeling, but I guess for me, like, this is, you know, I started by saying this is a movie that was until it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
But like every movie, the question at the beginning is like, is this even a movie that should be?
Right.
And one of the things I know from knowing Ben is how important it is for him to tell stories about connection, about people coming together, about giving respect to other viewpoints, and about finding common ground, especially in the fractured, politicized, left-right world that we live in. He always blah-blah-blahs me about stuff like that. When I hit him with like strong and accurate and righteous opinions about how the world.
He may be there now, but he was not there then. He did not want to make this movie about Kid Rock. And I feel like
I honestly a little bit. Seriously,
bit,
like no joking around. Like I got to like him and understand him and come to see him as a very complicated, complex person, like we all are. And he's not somebody who's like super easy to demonize for me, because I met his parents and his brother and heard the stories about how he grew up. And I think, like all of us, nobody is purposefully doing bad things. I think we all think that we're doing what is the best thing in our best interests, and we don't understand how it lands all the time. And I think he falls squarely into that. Yeah.
And for Berndt, where was your mindset in that? Like,
I thought it was an interesting opportunity from the get-go. The film was financed, which none of our films were ever financed. It was working with some of our close buddies, David Gordon Green and Danny, who I don't know as well, but I just thought it was like, hey, this is a great opportunity. This is going to be a high-profile film. Can we do it in a balanced way? Can we do it in a fair way that, you know, doesn't pull any punches on this guy, that celebrates his achievements, which he's had a lot of?
I want to give Berndt a ton of credit, because it was supposed to be about him putting out his last album, going on his last tour, and then knowingly retiring.
Right.
And then COVID hit, and all of that went out the window. And Roughhouse and Live Nation hadn't signed their deal yet. Like, it was not happening when COVID hit. And Berndt, to his extreme credit, was like, we need to start filming right now. It was like immediately as COVID happened, Berndt hopped in his car, drove to Nashville. We hired a local Nashville DP who was amazing. And the two of them shot some of the best footage in the movie. And the fact that we started meant that the movie happened. So like, and that's all credit to Berndt.
We kind of got a little momentum that way. But yeah, we were talking with Adam or EP or collectively wondering, like, you know, this is such a bizarre moment for everyone, right? What does this look like for Kid Rock? So I guess I volunteered to try it up there. This is like still like, you know, you're wiping everything down.
I remember Katie, do you remember this detail? My wife, Katie, made you a mask with her sewing machine.
Yes.
Like, masks weren't even like a thing you went and bought at the store yet.
Well, yeah,
like, it was like,
no one had them because they're the personal protective equipment or PPE or whatever it's called. Anyway, but Kid Rock was wiping down his mail, you know, with Lysol. You know, that's where we were, you know, who's now, he would be laughing at that. But anyway, so I went up there and we spent a weekend with him and started filming this movie, and it was pretty magical. I think there's good nuggets of learning to come from that trip. We had a bunch of ideas of what we wanted to film with him. Like, what does this look like for you, this COVID era? Who are you calling, Kid Rock? And he's like, I'm not really calling anyone. And I'm like, who would you call? Could you call your manager and get an update on the music industry in the early pandemic?
What celebrity friends?
What celebrity friends would you call? Who would you call? He's like, well, I guess I could call and check in on Loretta. And I'm like, Loretta Lynn? Yeah, that would be a good scene.
Yeah, let's do that.
So, we had a scene in the film.
And funnily enough, this is not in the movie, but they had just had like some kind of moment in the media. Do you remember this, where he had proposed to her publicly?
Yeah.
And so they were like, writing about how Kid Rock had proposed to Loretta Lynn. So it was they had this cute like little back and forth thing happening.
Very fun. In our case, we were trying to, see what he was doing, get him active in doing things. And so proposing a bunch of things like, who are you calling? Who could we check in with? What are you doing during the pandemic? And with these celebrities, like, they're going to have their own ideas.
Well, and that was an interesting lesson because we made commercials with celebrities, but we've not made a biopic, or I hadn't at that point. I know you hadn't either. But what we learned really quickly was like, there's a difference between like what you want to film and what they're willing to film.
Right.
And I can only imagine how insane that difference is with like, not to pick on Beyonce by any means, but like somebody at that caliber, right, would probably have like very strict rules around what you have access to.
Yeah.
And Kid Rock definitely said no to some things, but
What did you say no to?
well, just like scenes where we'd be like,
Well, they wanted
how about
to-
we shoot a scene with you and your wife having dinner or
Yeah.
something like that,
His
or your
fiance.
fiance.
I don't remember meeting his wife.
Yeah, she wasn't in the film because he turned us down. We had it on every ask list that we went in. Every time we filmed with him, it was always like, we want a scene with you and her. And he was always like, let me ask her.
And the process was we would basically submit like a shot list, and that would go to the assistant, and then the assistant would come back and be like, of the 10 things, let's do 6, and then he wants to do 3 others.
No, he wants to play pickleball.
Seriously.
This shows you how long ago it was when I watched this rough cut.
Yeah.
It was like, what is that thing you're doing?
Yeah.
I was taking over the world. Kid Rock was
Yeah, or I want to show you my General Lee and do donuts in the General Lee, and we were like,
Oh, I forgot that.
So that was
That's
one of the
right.
first things we
Did
filmed.
you shoot it?
Yeah, we shot it.
No.
It didn't end up in the film.
No, but I did want to finish that thought and just say, like, to his extreme credit, he is at a level of ticket selling for Live Nation, or was at that time, where he could have been really protective of himself.
Sure.
Right.
And he was not. We met his brother, his parents, we met his fiance. Like, he basically let us into his world in a very vulnerable way.
And it never had any like hang-ups about like, does my hair look good? He was just
none of
shirt
that.
off, belly out, hair balding, like.
We asked him to be in his tidy whities for the opening.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah, he was just just totally transparent with us in terms of like letting us in, except for his fiance.
Which they are now apparently not together anymore. So I think there was.
View of where this thing was headed. I want to know what it's like working as co-directors, because one, you guys have a long-term relationship, friendship, you have a long-term business partnership. I had never co-directed.
Right.
I have feelings about the role of the director.
And actually for this project, because a limited amount of time with Kid Rock is probably a good amount of time.
Okay.
So neither one of us had to spend all our time with the guy.
That might be the title of your episode, by the way. That's pretty good. A limited amount of Kid Rock is the right amount of time instead of the Kid Rock.
So, I think you're answering one of my main questions. There is, when you're on shoots, are you together, shooting together, or are you ping pong?
Very rarely.
Yeah. So we did a couple of shoots together, and we kind of divvied up things. Like Ben took the main interview with Kid Rock, and there was also just some availability stuff going on because we do run a business, and maybe one of us had a shoot or something.
Well, I had a very small first child at home.
Right.
So for me to be gone at the height of COVID, going to Trump rallies, which we were,
too.
was pretty intense.
But there was also there was like the Trump rally. It was also just like, we don't need to both be there for every shoot. I think we were overlapped on only one shoot.
It was the main interview. Yeah.
But we just kind of divvied it up and came up with shot lists and ideas of what we would film with him together. And then one of us would go out and execute it.
And when you do that, is it someone like, I've literally been on set for every moment that is in my documentary as an archival.
Yeah.
When you come back from a shoot that you're co-director hasn't been on,
Right.
what's the process of downloading and sharing?
Well, I
Both
think
visually or like through words and like your connection, and then also through the footage.
well, I knew exactly what he was going to go shoot because we would talk about it and we would create the materials that we had to submit to Kid Rock's people, and we were talking to Adam, our EP, a lot, and so we were sort of both creating the ideas, and then he would go get them, and then I remember we would have calls during the shoots, like either if I was there or you were there. So it wasn't like you would come back and have stuff that was like, oh, whoa, I can't believe you got it was more like knew what he was, what the objective was, and then we went and there was some definitely surprising moments, but like it was, we kind of knew what the story was.
We didn't know he was going to be at Kid Rock's 50th birthday party, but like, you know, Jimmy John's founder, what's his name, Jimmy Leotoad, was there, and Theo Vaughn was there, and you know, we didn't know who we were going to interview, but that just, we knew that we were going to be there, that we would pull people aside and get their take on
and
Kid Rock and turning 50, etc.
And you know, in true documentary fashion, like it was always great material because it was surprising. And when you had like a pretty electric main character, which love him or hate him, he is that,
right? And
an interesting world which he lives in,
where John Daly shows up showing dick pics,
right? Or like, you know, suddenly you're in the green room with Donald Trump Jr. and Kimberly Guilfoyle or whatever, or on his private jet, like flying, you know, back to Nashville, whatever the case may be. It was always like good material. And I would say, like, in specific detail to this project, what was helpful was that I had been sober for a long time, and so Berndt could actually like go party with him when it was appropriate to go party with him, because that was a big part of it, you know, at least like at his like summer house or whatever. And so that was really helpful to be able to like split up during those moments.
He would get loose.
But just as these men here are sifting through the detritus and floating trash of Lady Bird Lake here on the side of the water, and thank you guys for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Somebody has to dig through the footage, and somebody has to, and that's I guess what I'm asking, because when I'm on set, I'm there for every moment of the camera rolling. And the feeling, like, it's one thing to have a plan, and I certainly have a plan and talk through it with my producers. And, you know, I don't know that I prepare to the level that you guys do. I'm sure I don't. But I have, you know, there's shape and goals and kind of like beats that you're going to go. And just even by nature of what you're pointing a camera at, where you're going, what the location is, who's going to be there. For me, so much of like what makes an edit come to life is like sifting through the footage with your editor. But because I'm there, I know the footage, and then I get a second set of eyes, his eyes on it, and then we put our heads together. I'm just curious, like, when you're not, just because I've never done this, when you're on a shoot, and you go and get stuff, and you come back and you've got, you know, a terabyte of new footage, and you've had these experiences, how do you tell Berndt what happened, and then Berndt, how do you engage with the footage, and or vice versa?
Well, I'll give you a great example, which is Berndt. Again, to Berndt's extreme credit, was like, we need to go film this moment with Kid Rock at the Super Bowl. And it was basically like him reacting to Biden's victory, which you see in the movie. What happened logistically was that we were being told we were out of money and we couldn't take a crew. And Berndt was like, I'll go anyways and shoot it myself. And I was like, I don't think you should do that. It's going to look very different from all the other footage in the movie. Like, that's not what we're doing. And Berndt was like insistent, and I'm so glad. And then, so he basically hung out solo with Kid Rock and his crew and got what is arguably the most pivotal scene in the movie, where Kid Rock admits to basically liking Colin Kaepernick, and he calls a friend to set him straight, and the friend is basically like, you guys lost, you need to like understand the gravity of this situation and sit down and behave yourself. Essentially, you're 50 years old. And it's this really incredible moment. And when Berndt came back from the trip, that was all he could talk about. It was like, I got this insane moment, blah blah blah, and I didn't understand it for what it was, but he was right. And so I would just say, like, he knew it and he conveyed it to me, and then And then I saw it.
I would like to take credit for me going on that trip, but I think it was more Kid Rock threatening to leave the film if we didn't go see his Alabama house, which is part of the whole weird thing in his mind. The whole documentary for Kid Rock was kind of an extended MTV Cribs, where he just wanted to show us all of his stuff, all of his cars, all of his houses. And he was like, you guys haven't seen my Alabama place yet, which he's got a little hunting ranch or whatever next to Hank Williams Jr.
And he had his like classic cars there too that he really wanted to show off.
Classic cars. And anyway, so he was like threatening to leave the movie, which is so weird. And we didn't have any money left. And I was like, okay, I'll go with a camera and do my best job shooting, which I don't do a lot of anymore. So anyway.
And when he comes back and he tells you how great that is, are you diving into the footage and saying, let me just watch a raw feed of that and give feedback, or is it just the editor?
I mean, it's important to understand maybe the level of the film that this is and also the timing. Like, this is kind of towards the end of a $2 million movie with celebrities, and we were trying to hurry for a Sundance deadline. There was like reasons why we were out of money and out of time. And we were working with Alex McKenzie, our very talented editor friend in Los Angeles. And I think the footage went straight to him, and Berndt was just like insistent about this scene. So I think the first time I saw it was cut into the movie, and it just worked like gangbusters. He does a mea culpa. He apologizes at the end, and he says in interview on camera, I used to hate it when rock stars got political, thought they were assholes. Now I'm the asshole, and I'm gonna step back, shut my mouth, help other artists, be a good grandpa. He's a grandfather at 50. And try to sneak into heaven is what he says. And he literally, in that moment, is basically apologizing and saying he's going to change. And that, to me, to go back to your earlier question, I think did sort of give me, like, drag me politically a little more to the center and give me hope and make me think, like, holy shit, if a guy like Kid Rock can grow and change in his old age, there's hope for all of us. And I think that was what was so heartbreaking for me personally about the movie not coming out, is I feel like it was this real, like, conciliatory, like, we could all understand each other a little bit better type of portrait, where it was critical but fair, and you end up
it's not black
empathizing.
Or white. It's not black or white. It's non-binary. Kid Rock is the original non-binary.
Just straight up bounty. I would normally dissuade a guest or a co-host who is working as a guest, we got talking about something you co-directed together, to give up the critical, climactic moment of the film. And if somebody had done that in a previous episode, and maybe they have, you'll never know.
But they'll never see
we would cut it out. We would cut out that moment, because we would say, don't just sit here and talk about this movie. Go run out and see the film at your next film festival, or tune into it on HBO or Amazon or Netflix. But that will never happen.
Correct.
What is the name of the movie?
It was the last Rockstar at the beginning, and now it's My Name is Kid.
Yeah, My Name is Kid is where we were at the end of the process. I think it probably would have changed again. But it started as the last Rockstar.
It's been like
Man, but documentary filmmaking is, it's fun, man. I listened to Bradley Beasley's episode of this, and there's some talk about pirate talk, right? That's the attractive part about documentary, because I came at filmmaking from the narrative point of view. Like, you write a script, you cast actors, you get locations and put it all together and go film this kind of dream that you have in your head, right? But it wasn't until I met Ben in grad school and I was forced to make a documentary. I was totally terrified.
Who forced you to do that, Steckler?
Paul Steckler. 881 KA was it called?
Yep.
And
that's our first semester
for the first time ever, not knowing how you do that, but have since fallen in love with the practice. And there is this kind of pirate mentality, this kind of like filmmaking as sport that you can embrace in documentary, where it's a little bit, you're thinking of things on your feet, and obviously you plan ahead and can do things. You can plan to a degree, but you got to be a little bit improvisational. And
it's all about adaptation. But you have like the wild adaptation of like a pirate who's on a treasure hunt. You expect to come up bunk a fair amount of the time, and most documentary filmmakers, I was just talking to Berndt off camera about how many projects have developed that haven't been made, and how many have in development right now that'll never get made. But you guys made the thing. You made the thing. Somebody ponied up $2 million. You spent the money.
Yep.
You you went into the wilds of COVID,
Yeah.
kind of breaking like paradigms that were in place in that moment,
Yeah.
and putting yourselves at risk. You learn lessons from it.
Sure.
You made a film that is exciting, engaging, and fun from what I recall from what I watched, and it did give me a view into something that surprised me at times, and that made me laugh, and that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
And it's great filmmaking, because you guys are great filmmakers, and yet the door got slammed shut on My Name is Kid, and I guess that's what I'm building to.
Yeah.
How did that happen, and why?
That was a real bummer, man, because we had this edit that we were still working on, and Adam Balalo, our EP, was like, basically without asking us, wrote to Kid Rock and was like, hey, we want to come show you the movie. And we felt like we were still a little ways away, is my recollection. But we scrambled, we set a date. It was like 2 weeks out, maybe 3 weeks out. And we just kept working with our editor, Alex, and got the film to a really good spot and solved some problems, tightened things up as best we could, and flew out to Nashville and showed it to Bob, Kid Rock, Bob Ritchie. And his manager was there. A bunch of his friends were there. They were really drunk and rowdy. And he watched the film and he loved it. And he hugged us afterwards.
And
He was like, I can't believe how
cried.
good you guys are.
Yeah.
That process?
No, he didn't. His manager was there. He was like, I think it's 95% there. I just want more footage of him like filling arenas.
And his manager is like the tip top, like Nashville. He had been like Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers. He was like a scary dude.
Yeah.
So the fact that we got his blessing was huge.
Yeah, he was into it. Kid Rock was into it. We showed it to Live Nation. Live Nation loved the film. The sales agents were talking about a Sundance premiere.
Yeah.
You were like, oh my
Roughhouse
God, we
loved
threaded
it.
this needle. We've made this film that is critical of him, but also celebrates the accomplishments he's had in his career. Wow, we've done it. We made this movie that feels like a fair take on this guy. And we were like high-fiving. David Gordon Green loved it. Danny McBride had very minimal notes, loved the film. Jody Hill loved it. Everyone liked the film. We were like, this is a miracle. We did this thing. And June of 2022, Pride Month, Kid Rock is at some bar and gets up on stage to sing with somebody. And they had made an announcement, put away your phones, don't film this. And somebody's holding up their phone and he drops the F-bomb, if you can think of Pride Month.
Yeah.
And
Homophobic slur.
Homophobic slur.
Says if your phone's in the air right now, you're a
Blank.
F word. Yeah.
And anyway, that gets on TMZ, that's put out in the world. And this is 2022, which if you guys remember is the peak of cancellations, right? Like everyone was getting canceled and run out of Hollywood for much less than this.
We survived.
Exactly. But anyway, so Danny and David and Jody rightfully were like, man, feels really toxic. We're playing with fire here. And
Which
so
is wild to us because there's so much worse stuff in the movie that we were like, well, what did you think was gonna happen? This is actually like fairly
So
risky.
who's the reactive point there?
I think the lawyers. I think lawyers were like, the upside on this is, you guys have this giant show with HBO, Righteous Gemstones, which is amazing. The show's amazing. Like, this is not really worth it for you guys to be publicly associated with this character who's making these homophobic remarks in public, and which I totally get and understand. And so they were like, we're gonna get out of here. And so we were kind of left. Once Danny McBride, who, Kid Rock was in love with Danny McBride, once he was gone, things just got a little, we were on thin ice with him, Kid Rock, and we tried to save the movie. Tried to, just deal directly.
Yeah. Like hurt Kid Rock's
Well,
feelings.
I mean, that's really like the elephant in the room, honestly. I think his ego was really hurt. And so he was sort of like, if Danny's not involved, then the movie's over, essentially.
Basically.
And so Live Nation came and grabbed the hard drives, and it's permanently shelved, so it'll never
Which
come out.
sucks because it's a really good film. It at that time, I think it was. I'm embarrassed to almost say these words, but I thought it was an important film for that moment because it was complicated. It was such a binary time, black and white, left versus right.
Yeah.
Time in this country with the reemergence of Trump back on the campaign trail.
Yeah.
The Biden presidency, everything was so divided.
And Biden had just won. And so there was this moment of like, oh, whoa, okay. And so it felt a little bit like a reset, and Kid Rock was talking about resetting. And then we've all seen what has happened since. And so at the time when it didn't come out, I think it was really from a career perspective, it was really heartbreaking because this was a huge opportunity for us as directors. But I think on a more like grand scale, I think we may have dodged a bullet in a sense, because had we made a sympathetic portrait, well, maybe not sympathetic, but had we made a portrait of this guy who then went on to have a tour where Trump introduces him via video feed, and he has said and done such like really insensitive things since then, had we been permanently associated with that, that may have hurt us in some way that's hard to understand. And so that's like my personal spin on it of like how I can
could have also
save the
like,
heartbreak.
but the documentary could have also helped redefine Kid Rock.
Could
and his
have,
own relationship with the public and his own relationship with media, and it could have sent him on a little bit more of a conciliatory direction. I don't know.
It could have, yeah.
Maybe that's another possibility.
That's a definitely glass half full way to read it, and I would hope that would have been the case.
So it was a bummer.
It was a bummer.
It was a bummer.
It was a bummer. Here,
Was there a
let's-
period of time? Yeah, where we
let's flip around here. Yeah.
just go back this way or go up there?
No, let's just go back this way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there,
Yeah.
the stages of grief?
Yeah.
Anger, denial,
Yeah.
bargaining.
Maybe Ben has a different memory of it. I felt really in love with that movie. I thought what we were able to do again was like threading a needle, hitting a sweet spot where we didn't pull any punches, but also is a fair portrait and a complicated portrait of this guy. I think once he did the homophobic slur and all that stuff, I feel like you were a little less enthusiastic about proceeding with it. And I feel like I tried to go to the mat a little bit and try to save this thing. And
There's a little bit of a longer story about how when we showed it to him and the behavior around all that. I don't know that it's appropriate to say all that on the podcast, but I will just say that I felt the same way about the movie and still frankly do. I'm really proud of it, of what we managed to achieve. And I think you say it right, which is we threaded this needle that was really hard to do. And I think he frankly has a drinking problem, and when he gets drunk he says and does things that are incredibly hurtful to everybody around him, and it's almost like he does that on purpose in a way, and he has been rewarded for it throughout his life by saying and doing the outrageous inflammatory thing. But as he's now 50 years old and has a grandkid and people who depend on him look up to him, it's no longer cute and interesting and admirable. It's kind of gross and ugly. And so I think I felt like maybe it's best not to be identified or to continue with that.
There's a pantheon of films like this, films that are made that are too hot for various reasons to be released.
Right.
And of course, probably like the most famous example of that is Cocksucker Blues.
Sure.
Yeah, the Robert Frank portrait of the Rolling Stones, right, on tour for Exile on Main Street.
Superstar, Karen Carpenter story, which not that it was too hot, it was just
It's illegal. They shouldn't have that. I'm so glad you mentioned that. Todd Haynes, Superstar.
Yeah.
When we were talking about Christine Vachon earlier, that movie was in my mind.
Yeah.
That movie's a life-changing movie for me.
Yeah, me too.
But that one was kind of a lightning bolt because it essentially dealt with anorexia, which they were not talking about publicly in terms of Karen Carpenter yet.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so, with Cocksucker Blues, right, there's like a little-known codicil in like the legal arrangement between Frank and the Stones, where he gets to show the film from time to time. I don't remember exactly.
But he has to be present or something like that. Yeah, maybe we could.
Well, that was Les Blank's deal with Colm as a Naked Person with Leon Russell for 25 years or something, and then it came out before Leon died, and he ended up coming around and embracing the film and going to the premiere.
Let's just go on tour with this film.
Well, and that's part of what I wonder, if you captured a snapshot of Kid Rock circa 2020 when he was turning 50 years old. It was somebody who's recently done that. It's a turning point moment in your life. It forces you
50th episode, you're turning 50.
Hey, whoa, I didn't even put that together. Look at that.
That's why I'm here. That's why I'm an EP.
and so it forces you to look back and it forces you to take stock of things.
Yeah.
And I think the film does such a great job. It is a biopic. It tells the story like not cradle to grave, but cradle to 50.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys hold out any hope that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now,
I don't know.
There's a new chapter?
I don't know. I mean, we've talked about it. I mean, it's been almost 5 years since we started making it in 2020. It's been more than that. It's been 6 years on this, right? But since we started filming, and we've written his manager and inquired about maybe turning into a 3-part doc series or something like that. And he guys responded positively to an idea, but it would take him and Live Nation being on board. And I think his relationship with Live Nation, actually through all of his, ticket reform stuff, pricing reform stuff, is potentially soured. So I don't know who owns this footage at this point.
Yeah, I think Live Nation still legally owns the footage, but it could never be released legally without Kid Rock's involvement because all the music is his, basically. So,
which is an interesting tactic in the negotiation.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, come and make the documentary about me. And yeah, you guys can have final cut, but I own all the music. It won't license it to you until I'm happy with the movie.
Yeah, it was
So
he had some leverage for sure.
Leverage, yeah.
The final chapter
Yeah.
on My Name is Kid is yet to be written. But I really appreciate you guys kind of opening up the curtain, letting us peek into this process because, like I said, every filmmaker in our audience has a film they've wanted to make and haven't been able to. Everybody has probably started a process, right? Even gone on a shoot or two or cut together something and couldn't either crack the storytelling or more likely crack the financing.
Right.
But I don't know anybody personally that has gone down the $2 million rabbit hole the way you guys did and ended up with something grave that can't be shared.
I mean, if you want to spend $2 million, we can do that for. We know just the way.
Maybe
We like sushi.
some things for my cabinet of curiosities only, just something for my eyes only.
We like sushi. We like bone marrow, fine wines and spirits.
It's a novel position to be in, and I'm glad we get a chance to talk about it, and I wish people could see it, because again, I think it's something that feels like both sides could get something out of. And when we were screening the rough cut for notes, we would show it to people of both political persuasions, and both sides really liked it and came away with different viewpoints of it, which was
remarkable at the time.
Yeah.
Because the country was very polarized, I mean, as it is now still. But.
Yeah. I think we need more of that for sure. I know that we're not too far from the end of our walk, and I want to spend some time talking about some of Berndt's other work
Can I
too.
make a point? Because I was about to get there myself, and there's a recognition here that, Berndt is a man behind the scenes of this podcast as the co-owner and co-founder of The Bear, who produces the podcast. So by nature, he's automatically an executive producer. But he is also like a partner to Ben in ways well beyond this Kid Rock scenario. You guys have co-directed Chop and Steal, which we've talked about a little bit on this show, and Ben has gone and done an episode with Joe Pickett from Chop and Steal. Yeah. You guys have an ongoing commercial enterprise with The Bear that every week is responding to RFPs and making pitches and making great work. I mean, I really love that stop motion material, the plumber stop motion material.
Shout out to Roughhouse.
Roughhouse, yeah.
So your directors, your co-directors, but your producers, your executive producers. You've got a stable of directors that work with you at The Bear. So I guess my point is there's a lot of stuff we could be talking to Berndt about that we are not going to get to just for time constraints on this.
Well, the Kid Rock is a particularly interesting point in our career, right? And we were doing it together, which was really fascinating.
Yeah.
And then it was just a high profile nature of the subject and working with our friends, David Gordon Green and Danny McBride. It was a really wild time, and it's good to get to talk about it.
In addition to the Kid Rock film, it's great to talk about it. I'm glad you feel that way too. Ben had hinted around the Kid Rock thing a number of times, and I'll tell you, Ben is different than me in a lot of ways, and one of the ways is that I don't like to talk about the possibilities and the potentials and the things that aren't seeing the light of day kind of till they're ready to go.
Right.
And that's why I feel like I'm sometimes a little vague about what I'm developing or what I'm trying to work on. But Ben is very open, and I mean that in a good way. Like, you're engaging with the work and the ideas that you have with the belief that they'll happen and they're real, and you talk about them openly, and I think it's a healthy way. It's not my way. And so we've talked about the Kid Rock movie. I think it's just trickled in in natural conversation a number of different times.
Yeah.
So to give people kind of a view of this, it's a weirdly dissatisfying
I mean, it's 2 years of our life,
see
It's 2 years of your life as a filmmaker, and it's hard to spend all that time and effort on something that will never see the light of day. So we like talking about things that you'll never see.
Yeah.
As a documentary maker, you deal in speculation, like you are a gambler.
Yeah.
Like that is what you do, is you conjure some idea, this story is important, this needs to be told. Most of the time when I'm doing that, I don't necessarily have access. I have no idea how I'm gonna get access, let alone funding for the thing. What I do know is that if I feel it and I get excited about it and I can share it with people, when I talk to them, I'm sort of like, you say that,
an idea.
yeah, like I'm auditioning the idea, and I'm also writing it a little bit, like, because I can understand what parts are boring to people. It's like pitching in a way. And I think if anybody who's gonna do this work seriously needs to understand how many ideas come and go and how much heartbreak is involved ultimately, because that is a big part of it. And if you can't deal with that rejection or let these big ideas go, then you need to basically do something else, I think.
Yeah.
We're getting a great close-up of Berndd's shoulder there.
My chest is my best feature.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
we'll pair Ben's inspirational speech with some shots of birds in the sky.
There you go. That part will probably get cut out anyway, so.
I'm not editing this one, so we'll see.
Well, but would you agree with that? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it's like we follow the heartbreak is like the moral of the story.
We follow the heartbreak.
Well, I mean, as filmmakers,
Episode number 50.
right, you know, it's like it's.
Especially for two shows.
I think there is something said about willing something to existence, right? If you're talking about an idea, you're getting people excited. You're kind of gauging whether there's an audience for something, right?
Yeah.
In the case of the Kid Rock film, like we didn't really have to worry about that because we had a subject that we knew at least some audience was going to pay attention to, right?
Yeah.
We had financing, so we didn't have to worry about the money coming through or finding the money. But still, we found heartbreak.
Even when
We managed to find the heartbreak by having a film that will never be released. So, yeah, I don't know.
we managed to find the heart rate.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are short of time. Yeah, and like I said, we can't get to all the things that we want to get to.
Sure.
But I do want to talk very briefly and maybe tee up for a future episode. And I don't think we have to wait necessarily episode 100 to get to it.
Mm-hmm.
But Berndt also has, not as a co-director, but as a director, one of the most unique adaptation stories I've ever come across, which is you adapted a Texas Monthly article, which a lot of people have done to great effect.
Right.
Oh, including our very own Keith Maitland
Yes.
here with Tower.
It's not a bad move to start with some great material.
Yes.
But he's adapted a Texas Monthly story about a really controversial and challenging
Yeah.
true crime tale in East
Right.
Texas
Yeah.
about child sexual abuse and
Yeah.
swingers and cult-like
It was a crazy
East
story.
Texas behavior. And he chose to make that adaptation into a hybrid film called Booger Red.
Mm-hmm.
And then that hybrid film was adapted, and correct me where I'm getting this wrong, but was adapted into a 3-part docuseries.
That's correct.
So it started as a journalistic literary take through Texas Monthly. Who wrote the original article?
Mike Hall.
I love Mike Hall.
Yeah, he's the best.
And then it became a creative twist on investigative journalism with a scripted, semi-documentary, semi-fictionalized account
Yeah.
starring Owner Tuchel,
Eleanor Tickell, yeah.
or Tuchel, called Booger Red,
Yeah.
which came out when?
2016, maybe 2017, right before the true crime documentary explosion,
Okay.
which when my film was premiering at some festivals, Making of a Murderer was just coming out, and I was like, what did I do? I made this hybrid, challenging movie, and, you know, documentary crime, true crime is like all the rage. So Booger Red, yeah, it was an adaptation of Mike Hull's story called Across the Line in Texas Monthly, which is this wild tale of alleged child sexual abuse in East Texas. Basically, the heart of the story is this foster mother who went to the police with these outrageous tales of her foster kids being sexually abused and exploited in a swingers club at the hands of their parents and their parents' friends. And the craziest thing about the story is that it's all made up by this foster mother who invented these tales of sexual abuse in order to game the foster care system. Because the more kind of screwed up you can prove your foster kid is with tales of sexual abuse or physical abuse, you can get more money from the system, right? So it was this elaborate scheme to game the foster care system for money. And
The scheme that like half a dozen people got caught up in,
Sure, yeah.
tried, convicted, sent to jail, some of them.
Yeah, I think it was 7 or 8 people at the end of the day were convicted of these really heinous crimes and sentenced to life in prison. And it was all based on these fabricated stories.
And when you read Mike Hall's story,
Yeah.
What was the light bulb that said, I have an idea of what to do with this?
It was just so, every page was more wild than the last, and it involved a guy named Booger Red, was one of the parents' friends, who was allegedly like the ringleader of this child sex ring. It involved swingers in East Texas. This is like Bible thumping East Texas, right? It was just like, everything was so bizarre. And like, there was an actual swingers club in this little town in East Texas that had existed for only like 4 months before it got closed down. It was just like stranger than fiction, every bit of the story. And I met with Mike, got along with him. He was like, this would make a great film. And then I was a really big fan of the Kiarostami film, Close Up, which is an Iranian film, where he follows this court case where this guy basically impersonated this famous Iranian director and ingratiated himself with this family, and then gets basically found out that he's an imposter pretending to be this director. And Kiarostami goes back and recreates the meeting of this guy posing as this famous Iranian director, ingratiating himself with his family. It's a bizarre movie, and I was like, I'm gonna make my version of Close Up using this crazy East Texas true crime story, and I'm gonna invent a reporter character that's gonna go in and interview all the real people involved in this story and discover the story himself as if he's writing about it. Does that make any sense?
No, I watched it. I mean, I watched it last night. This is a film I've known about
Yeah.
for almost 10 years, and I didn't catch it when I was on the festival circuit. I remember having talks about it with Owner at a party years ago,
Right.
and watching it just last night. It was exciting because it was like, so much of documentary filmmaking is this kind of shoe leather, behind the scenes. You know, it used to be you go and knock on people's doors. Now everything's on Zoom.
Right.
But still, there's like a whole layer of research and investigation
Yeah.
that print journalists do and then get to write, you know, from that. But we kind of do that before the process takes hold.
Right.
And so for you to kind of capture that process, it's a journalism story. I know who doesn't like. I love journalism story. It's an investigation. It unfolds, and the fact that it's true and it's, you know, quote unquote based on a true story is what you expect in a fictionalized account. But this takes it a step beyond, because while Owner is an actor, is a filmmaker and an actor, playing a fictionalized version of himself as a reporter,
Right.
the people that he's interviewing are East Texas victims of a hoax, victims of a life-changing, you know, injustice. And yet they're appearing as if they're meeting a journalist for the first time. They're sharing and reacting to his questions, and no doubt, like, in full honesty of what they experienced. But at the same time, it's a fiction, because they're pretending like they don't know there's a camera there. It's not a documentary setup where everyone acknowledges the camera's here.
Sure.
Right? It's a fictionalized setup of a non-fiction scenario.
It's a mind bender of a story.
Yeah.
It's a mind bender of a way of approaching the story.
How did you, that's my question, is like, how did you approach those real people? What were those conversations like?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, it's been a while. It's been almost 10 years since I started making that movie, maybe longer. But basically, I just told them that we're going to tell your story, and we're going to do it in this unique way with this character who's playing a reporter, but all you have to do is tell your story, tell your truth, and we're going to splice it all together, get the account right. And they knew that. They knew that I was going to get the story right. They knew where my heart was and that I was sympathetic to their cause. And I had spent a lot of time with these people already. Yeah, we're right here by, but yeah, it was a risk for sure. I thought it was a novel approach to telling the story, but it's amazing that I got the opportunity to do it as a straight doc as well a few years later, when I was approached by some TV folks out of New York to redo it as a straight up doc series for HBO, which is what's out there now, called How to Create a Sex Scandal, where we got to do a straight doc version of it. So I'm glad that we have both.
Well, I noticed at least one setup that snuck in from Booger Red.
Yes.
The ladies in the front seat of the
swinger.
Yes.
Yes. The actual swinger, Sherry Adams, she and her husband Russ, you know, they got a little crazy back in the day. They were involved in the swingers club. But yeah, her appearance in the original film Booger Red and also in the doc series is important, because if all of this stuff that the sheriff and DA of Smith County was saying had happened in the swingers clubs, but these kids were abused in this swingers club, the only documented actual swingers that were talked to were Russ and Sherry Adams, and they were admitted that, hey, we were swingers at the club. And so if that's where all the abuse was, Why aren't these two proprietors and managers of the Swingers Club arrested also? Why aren't they in prison?
Right.
So that was kind of an important moment in my film and then also in the doc series. But she would not participate in the doc series. Yeah, so I don't know why that was. She got cold feet at the last minute.
I think that there's kind of exciting ethical questions to bat around, but that's not what I want to do right now.
Sure.
What I want to do is just like play with this idea of, as a director, directing actors can be, you know, like an intimate and psychological and emotional interplay. Doesn't always have to be, right? It certainly can be. But also directing participants or subjects in a documentary also has those elements. And people don't talk about that much.
Yeah.
If the episode is called We Followed the Heartbreak, a lot of documentary filmmakers, that's their whole careers. And I'm certainly guilty of that. Like, I've made films about people at the worst moments in their lives, and you're asking them to sometimes relive the worst moment of their life, to dig into it, to share things that they haven't shared sometimes with their loved ones or their therapists. You've done that now on the subject in two unique ways.
Right.
Talk about your relationship to real people and bringing like challenge and subject to the surface, especially when it's got a filter of fictionality.
Yeah. I mean, in this particular case, it was always about, you know, getting the story out there and exposing the DA's office in Smith County. Smith County is one of those counties, you know, behind the pine curtain, so to speak. As they say here in Texas, it's like, it's the deep South, right? It's like you know, you go to jail for writing a hot check. If you have over a certain amount of liquor in your car and you cross the county line, you're going to jail. And there's a lot of racism and classism baked into the system out there. And so that was a larger goal for all of the participants. They just didn't want this to happen to any more people, right? They didn't want the kind of good old boy network of DAs who see a bunch of people living in trailers and just think like, oh, these are easy targets. These guys let's just lock them up. So there was a bit of system fighting that was easy to get everyone on board with out in East Texas. In this case in particular, the impetus is like, how wide can we get this story? And yeah, we took a swing with Booger Red and it got a limited release and all that stuff. But like maybe a documentary series on HBO will bring more eyeballs to this outrageous story and foster more outrage at the system and get things changed. And things have changed out there. Like there's literally a new sheriff in town. There's a new DA. Like things are looking better in Smith County. And I don't know if our efforts have been responsible for that directly, but I think they've contributed to the chorus of angry voices out there, you know, and wanting change.
What was in your mind when you were considering and then deciding to take another bite out of this apple? Because I don't know anyone's ever made the same story twice like this.
Did my weird indie hybrid doc narrative idea, and I felt like a degree of responsibility that I didn't get a wider release, that I didn't get more attention, didn't draw more attention to Smith County, and in this case in particular, these kind of the true victims in this case. So I felt a little bit guilty having taken that swing, and it was another opportunity to tell that story on a bigger platform on HBO and really get the story out there. So to me, it was like a second chance in a way to do right by these folks and do what I'd always told them, trying to shed light on this situation, on this corrupt DA's office and this kind of railroading justice system out here in East Texas. So it was an awesome opportunity.
Well, that's great.
That's great.
I mean, that's a healthy and responsible way. And we ask people to kind of give so much to us. Yeah, it's these challenging stories.
Sure.
And that feeling of like, my film didn't quite go as far as I wish it had.
Sure.
To get another chance. I guess I'd never looked at it that way. I can see that really clearly. I can feel that.
I think this did that. I mean, it landed on HBO the day that HBO and Discovery merged. So it got a lot of eyeballs. Yeah. And that was, I think, really helpful. I don't know if it changed anyone's life, but I think they feel even more vindicated than they had been. Just having people out there recognize it and maybe reach out to them on Facebook or whatever and just empathize with their plight.
Well, let's do a lightning round because we're coming up to the end of our walk here.
Right.
So,
Exiting the Ladybird
Lake, we're taking our lives in our hands, crossing the street
It's a state
here.
law that we are following, and we expect other people to follow that we all just cross.
It's a state law.
State law.
Okay, so lightning round questions. Burnside, what was the gateway drug film for you that you saw that you were like, this is what I want to do. This, I want to make movies
Oh, man.
like this.
I mean, George Washington was definitely a big film because I was so intimately involved and experienced the filmmaking of, and then saw the finished piece. A documentary that got me really excited about documentary filmmaking was The Thin Blue Line by Errol Morris. That movie, and I was watching that all the time when I was making Good and Red. But yeah, that's a pivotal film for me for sure.
I'm surprised you didn't say Back to School or Brewster's Millions.
Well, those are on the table. for
Trading
sure.
Places.
Those are movies I loved, and those are movies that I
Often quoted around the office.
Yeah, Fletch. Yeah, no, those are great, but those were not like filmmaking inspirations for me necessarily, but the comedy inspirations for sure. But yeah, Thin Blue Line, Apocalypse Now, 2001: Space Odyssey, definitely all those films were huge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Number 2.
What is the advice that you would give to an emerging film? You mentioned earlier you teach at UT, sir.
Yes,
You profess
I profess.
to the next generation.
Yeah.
What are you professing at them? And what are they taking away? And what advice do you have for emerging filmmakers?
It's practice. You got to do it over and over and over again. It's like 10,000 hours, right? So I'm encouraging them always to just make stuff. I actually have 2 students whose projects were not greenlit in our class. We can greenlight 5 projects, but both of them reached out to me and are like, hey, if I get equipment after all the main productions are done, can I go shoot my thing and then just edit it during the summer?
All
And
right.
I'm like, this is awesome. This is Herzog. I always show my students Werner Herzog Eats His Shoe.
Yeah.
That's my documentary. In that documentary, Herzog is trying to inspire this crowd. Or he's like, they ask him about like money to make films. And he's like, money doesn't make films, initiative makes films, which is, I think, a super important line. Just got to go do it. And Herzog's like, steal a camera, steal the raw stock, just go do it. It's something I share with my students every year. Okay, you weren't greenlit, but that doesn't mean the end of your project. If you really want to make it, you still have access to equipment all semester.
That's awesome.
Do it after, when everyone's editing, you go shoot your thing and then edit it in the summer. And we're not going to workshop it in our class, but you have done it.
You also do a pretty passable Werner Herzog impression, which I feel like I'm proud of you for not
Ben.
doing, but come on, give us a little bit.
I used to think money does not make films, initiative makes films. Steal the camera, steal the raw stock, just do it.
See, it's pretty good. I gotta get
I
there.
think more than passable.
Yeah.
More than passable. Berndt Mader.
Yeah, a Berndt Mader story.
All right, so third question is, what is the thing that you can't stop thinking about right now that is not film related?
That's not film related. Oh, goodness. That's not film related. I mean, obviously there's the political stuff. The Iranian situation is pretty, I mean, it's hard to not say that because it occupies my brain every day to some extent.
Yeah, you are a politics junkie. I know this about.
I like following politics. And it's just, every day is more insane than the last, and there's no norms anymore, and we're just living through a national nightmare that just keeps unfolding, and we have 3 more years of it, is what I keep
Wow.
reminding myself every day. That's just terrible. Sorry to bring it down at the end.
No.
Slap in the face of reality.
Yeah, but also my kid's summer schedule, is really occupying a lot of space.
Yeah, that happens. You have 2 kids.
I do. I have 2 kids.
That's right. And then last question.
I will ask. Last question.
Yeah.
What is your dream collaborator? I mean, you've obviously lived the dream.
Yeah, I mean,
Every day
I can't. How can I live up to my collaboration with Ben?
And now you've got to be on dock walk. So I mean, really, it's like 2.
Man, I would love to.
Like Kid Rock, you might as well just call it a day.
I've actually, I wish that I could collaborate with Richard Linklater, write a script and that Rick makes. It'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I think that'd be fun.
Yeah.
I
That's
actually don't think a lot about collaborating with people, but I think that would be fun. I know a couple of people who have written scripts that he's made, and he's just such a cool dude and been a really nice guy to me and the Bears. So
yeah.
yeah,
Awesome. Well, Burnside, this has been great, man.
dude, make it good, guys. Make it 5 minutes of gold.
Thank you for doing this, brother.
It's all been.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, let's
I
cut.
hope this is.
I think that did it.
It's an episode, you guys.
We did it. We always talk too much at the end. I think that was great. Let's cut.
Oh, are you still rolling?
Cut. Next time on Doc Walks, I'm walking solo without Keith, but I'm with my friend Brian Storkel, who is the director of the Hulk Hogan docuseries on Netflix. Brian and I got a chance to catch up during South by Southwest. I really enjoyed this episode. I got a chance to learn about Brian's backstory, ask him specific questions about how he handles reenactments, and many more. So I hope you enjoy listening to it half as much as I did recording it. So please stick around for the next episode, next time on Doc Walks.
Doc Walks is created, produced, and edited by my friend Ben Steinbauer of The Bear.
Hello. And my friend Keith Maitland of Go Valley.
Thanks for tuning in.
Follow us at Doc Walks Pod on Instagram, X, and YouTube.